legal advisor at Family Rights Group. I will be exploring some of the key legal considerations to bear in mind when undertaking an initial assessment. When approaching an initial assessment, it's really important to think about the legal process and the court orders that could follow that assessment. Initial assessments can be challenged in court if they're not properly conducted, and so a key principle outlined in the initial assessment guide is about conducting your assessments in such a way that ensures you produce a legally sound assessment. Keeping this in mind throughout the assessment process and in discussions with the family member or friend who's being assessed can avoid the need for an assessment potentially having to be redone, which would come at not only expense to the local authority, but more importantly, pose delay to the child. In recent years, the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court have looked closely at how different placements for children should be explored if there's a possibility that that child might not be able to remain with their parents. These cases are set out in detail in the initial assessment guide, but together they outline these important principles. Firstly, that adoption should be an option of absolute last resort for a child, and plan for adoption should only be considered when nothing else will do. The court is only going to be in a position to decide that nothing else will do if it has considered all of the realistic family and friends care options for a child. Then, when weighing up the realistic options for a child, the court will be helped by having a really clear analysis of the arguments for and against each placement option. And you can ensure that they get this within the initial assessment by following some of the key principles set out in this guide. Finally, in order for the court to be able to potentially discount a placement option for a child, the court must be really clear that that placement is not one that would have any real prospect of being chosen when it comes to the full welfare evaluation of that option. Again, a clear initial assessment with a reasoned conclusion will ensure that the court can have confidence in deciding to pursue or not to pursue further assessment and potential placement with a certain relative or friend. The initial assessment guide helps practitioners to produce an assessment which sets things out in a court-friendly format. There is a schedule appended to the guide which goes through all of the information that should be included in the assessment, from details about the child and their background to information about the family member's ability to care for this particular child. It also includes an example template that practitioners should use when putting together their finalised assessment. Use of this template will ensure that the assessment produced to the court covers everything that a judge or magistrate needs to know when looking at those options for a child. Another important thing to think about throughout the process of assessing a relative or a friend as a potential carer for a child is that they may not know about the various legal arrangements or orders that can underpin a kinship care placement. It can be very helpful to a family member if you're really clear at this early initial assessment stage about those different legal arrangements and orders and what they look like. For example, there's kinship foster care, a child arrangements order, or special guardianship orders. The person being assessed needs to have a good understanding of these legal frameworks from the outset. They need to understand the implications that each has in terms of decision making on behalf of the child, as well as the support that may be available to them in each scenario. Equipping the relative or friend with this knowledge at the initial assessment stage will help to ensure that they enter into the right type of legal arrangement or order for them. Family Rights Group's advice website has detailed information about the various kinship orders and arrangements, including explanations about entitlements to support. Families can be directed to the site for further information to help them make a decision that is right for them and their family.